Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me spend some time with you today. I do appreciate it, as always. Uh, and as always, the statistics I look at every week continue to amaze me. I appreciate each and every one of you. I really, really, truly do. We're going to, yeah, that's right. We're going to look at something today. But before I get there, I want to remind you, just a friendly reminder, the like buttons, the share buttons, the subscribe buttons, notifications, all those things, they make it easy, much, much easier for people to find us just like you did. And a lot of you are. And it is humbling. It truly, truly is. Ooh, sorry about that. I bumped my microphone. Didn't want to do that. Going to look at something today. I've talked about it a little bit before, but not quite from this direction. Okay. We're going to look at philosophy and some other things. And should we really use philosophy to study the Bible? A lot of people, study it philosophically. Some people claim they study it hermeneutically. More on that in a moment. But is that the best way? The Cambridge Dictionary defines philosophy as, and I'm going to read this, the use of reason in understanding such things as the nature of real world and existence, the use and limits of knowledge, and the principles of moral judgment. Now, when we study the Bible through this method, what could possibly go wrong? I mean, after all, right? We're looking at it through human eyes. We're looking at it through the eyes and the filters of everything we have seen and heard and learned up till now. When we try to reason on our own understanding, mankind has a proven track record of not always being right. Proverbs 28:26, he who trusts in himself is a fool, but one who walks in wisdom will be safe. And of course, Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding. How many of us do that? Well, I think, or I feel, or I believe we're leaning on our own understanding. Jeremiah 17:9, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? When we try to reason something that is beyond our comprehension, okay? Or when we try to reason something that has been corrupted or has become corrupted to a point where it's very, very difficult to recognize, is there any hope in getting it right? Think about that. If we're trying to reason something, but we're not using the correct information, we're using some idea, some tangent of what it once was. Are we going to get it right? Probably not. Now, hermeneutics, on the other hand, is defined as the theory and methodology of interpretation, especially the interpretation of biblical text, wisdom, literature, and philosophical texts. Now, did you catch that? Really? It's the interpretation. In other words, it's what we think. It's our best guess. But because it also includes the philosophical text, then logically, you can't mix hermeneutics with philosophy because it becomes circular reasoning. And that is against the laws of logic. Now, when we try to interpret something that's philosophical, right? Philosophically, there's no way to get it right. Yes, that was a bad pun, but you get my picture, I hope. Now, I'm not saying that philosophy can't be incorporated in Bible study because, after all, we're dealing with understanding of natural things, but we're also dealing with supernatural as well. So to use only one method or even two methods that are not that different, okay? I'm just going to put it that way. It's probably not a good idea. I may, and I'm not sure about this, but I may have been the first to use the phrase biblical forensics. It's more of a mechanical way to study. It's more deliberate, more functional, and more accurate because it uses all of the clues that allow the Bible to interpret itself. There's no guessing about what something means. When you dig through the language, you dig through the culture, you dig through the history, you put all of this together, all the clues, just like someone who would investigate a crime scene, right? If a crime scene investigator is called to a house and the crime happened in one room, well, they're not going to start in that room. They're going to start investigating as soon as they get to the building, right? They're going to look at the way the building's laid out, how everything goes together, the flow. They're getting the lay of the land, so to speak. And then as they get closer to the actual crime scene, they're going to have a better understanding of how something may have happened, maybe even why something may have happened. The mistake a lot of us make using philosophy and hermeneutics is you go straight to that single verse. You go straight to it, and you overlook what was written to get there. You kind of forget what you've just seen on the way into the crime scene, right? You following me there? Let me use another example, though. Currently, as I'm speaking, I'm not sure when you're going to listen to this, but there is a manned flight around the moon. Now, do you think that the astronauts on board that spacecraft, would they feel safe if the engineers studied the physics of space travel? I'm having trouble speaking. Do you think they'd feel safe if they studied the physics of space travel philosophically or even hermeneutically? Oh, well, we think that this is the right time to do this. We think if you burn those rockets this long, it'll work. It could work. It could happen, right? I don't know about you, but I doubt I would have stepped on board that rocket. It's no way to be sure you're going to reach your destination. It's impossible. If you're planning a trip, you look at a map. Well, most people today don't look at a map. They punch it into their GPS. But let's pretend you don't have GPS. You're going to look at a map, and you're going to say, philosophically, I think we can reason that if we travel east to go west, we're going to get where we're going. And yeah, I suppose you could get there, kind of, but it would be an extremely long and arduous trip, wouldn't it? You ever think about it that way? Can you study a map philosophically? You might eventually get where you're going, but it's not going to be the way you thought it would be. Would you trust a doctor who was trying to diagnose an ailment that you might have if he said something like, well, philosophically, I think the tests we did, they show there's nothing wrong with you. Now, you'd probably want a doctor to say something like this. Instead, I have looked at the test results very carefully. I've studied them. And because of everything they show us and everything we have learned from the past, I think the problem is this. And by the way, here's the cure. Which would you rather have? Which would you rather have? Let's use another one. If you were charged with a crime that there is absolutely no way you could have committed, no way. You weren't even in the country at the time. You weren't even born at the time, right? Would you trust your defense attorney to say, I've read the crime report, and from what I can interpret, I'm going to guess you're guilty. Wouldn't make you feel very confident in that attorney, would it? You see, every time our Creator tries to make it easier for us to follow Him and follow His way, to live the way we're designed to live, mankind has found a way to make it more complicated. It's just who we are. It's what we do. Every time our Creator has offered us His blessings, we have found a way to avoid receiving them, haven't we? We've done something. He throws us this nice, easy ball to catch, and we step away from it every time. All he asks is obedience. And we say, oh, we can't obey because we don't understand. We can't obey because it's too hard. The reality is we don't obey because we don't want to. And then people being people, we're going to blame it on somebody else or something else. And we try to blame it on the Creator Himself. You made this way too hard for us. What are you trying to say? Don't murder. Don't you know I can't go a day without it? What do you mean don't commit adultery? Did you catch a look at her in her bikini? Did you see him in those Speedos? It's not his fault. It's our fault. Every time. And a lot of this, a lot of what we think we know comes from the use of either philosophy or hermeneutics all by themselves. We guess at what he's trying to tell us. But when we add the mechanics of forensics and we look at the whole book, everything that is written, all the way to the passage that we're going to really dig into, we don't need to guess. We don't need to interpret, because our Creator has already done all of that. He said, I'm not going to leave you room to guess. You don't have to interpret. I've given you everything you need to understand this. And He's already said it. It has already been written. We just don't want to read it. We don't want to believe it's that easy. Regular listeners have heard this often, and I'm going to say it again, and I will say it until everybody understands it. The Bible, in its original language, in its original context, is absolutely agonizingly specific. It is agonizingly specific. There's no room for interpretation. There's no need to guess. He has already answered the questions. He's already supplied the clues if we are willing to follow them as we walk our way through those pages on our way to whatever passage we're going to look at. So, the next time somebody invites you to a Bible study, don't ask what they plan to study. What book are we going to study? Don't ask that. That's I'm not going to say it's not important. It is important. But the better question, you ask them how they plan to study. How are you going to study this? Tell me, give me your layout for how you plan on studying this. How are you going to approach it? Where are you going to start? Are you going to start where it leads up to this? Or are you just going to kind of read it and guess at what it says? You see, there's no need to guess. There's no need to interpret. We just have to follow the clues because they're there. They've always been there. They're already provided. And if you want to see some of those clues, by the way, author Jerry Mitchell's Where the Books Are Sold. You can also go to givegod90.com, follow the links from there, and hopefully that gives you a whole lot to think about until next time. And until next time, I do wish you many, many blessings, everyone.